I remember it like it was yesterday. I woke up late, thanks to me forgetting to set my alarm the night before. When I saw 7:27 on my alarm clock, I sprang out of bed like a jackrabbit and began pulling my clothes on furiously. I needed to be at my bus stop by 7:35, so that meant I had no time to brush my teeth or eat breakfast today. No, I had forfeited those luxuries due to my little mistake. I hurriedly scooped my books and worksheets into my backpack and dashed down the stairs and out the front door. I hauled ass to get to the bus stop. Just as I rounded the corner, I could see the last kid getting on the yellow bus. Hey, I yelled, but the kid didn't hear me. I hastened my sprint as the bus began pulling off, smoke pouring from the exhaust. Hey, I yelled again, waving my arms wildly. In the side mirror, I made eye contact with the bus driver. The driver had always been a stern old man, so I can't say that I was surprised to see him give me a dismissive look and shrug as if to say, "Too late, kid." The driver sped up and I was left behind, dejected, listless, and without a mode of transportation. My school was about 20 minutes away from the bus stop. I had no money and had never ridden the public bus anyway. My 10-year-old mind was in a complete state of panic. I knew my mom would kill me once my teacher called and told her that I was skipping school. I sat down on the curb, sighing deeply. I still can't explain it exactly, but something didn't feel right. I had never felt this way before in my life, but something was just ... wrong. I felt a chill run down my spine, and it had nothing to do with the wind whipping around me. I was even more unsettled due to the fact that the wind sounded chillingly like agonized screams ripping through the air. I looked up and noticed the beat-up, dirt-brown pickup truck chugging slowly down the street towards me. I don't know why I didn't run at the sight of it. I merely sat and watched as the truck pulled up right next to me and came to a halt. The driver's side window was already rolled down, and I could see a wizened old man wearing a dirty red cap gazing out at me. He flashed me a toothless smile before speaking. "What's wrong, kid?" "I missed my bus," I said with an air of defeat. The man stared at me for a moment before responding. "You need a ride." Yes, I had been taught to never talk to or accept rides from strangers. Still, I was a desperate 10-year-old who didn't want to get into trouble for missing school. "Yeah." I grabbed my backpack and walked over to the passenger door. I hopped in, slamming the door behind me. The inside of the man's truck was filthy. There were cans and old food packages on the floor, and the smell was overwhelming. I coughed and reached to let down the window. "Sorry, kid. That window doesn't work, and neither does the door from the inside." I looked at the man, who was looking at me intently. There was a little bit too much glee in his dark eyes, and I was beginning to feel very uncomfortable. "Where do you go to school?" he asked, and I told him. The man smiled again, then began driving. I looked up at his rearview mirror and saw what appeared to be a little girl's rainbow-colored bracelet hanging from it. My unease was out of control now, and though I tried to look away quickly, the old man caught me looking at it. "Oh, this." It was my daughter Jessica's. "I think about her every day." He reached out and caressed the bracelet. I stared out of the window, noticing that the man was going a completely different way than the bus driver usually did. What ... what happened to her?" I asked numbly. The old man was quiet for a few long seconds before answering. "Well ... she passed away in a car accident. The roads are dangerous, you know, especially in this town." My heartbeat was increasing by the second. I wondered if the old man had been lying about the door not working. I was strongly considering yanking at anyway. "How old are you, young lady?" 10, I replied quickly, trying to hide my nervousness but failing. The old man stared blankly ahead in silence for a few more minutes. "Yeah ... that's how old my Jessica was when she passed." He reached for my leg and I instinctively pulled it up. I felt my face turn red when I realized the man was merely reaching for a bag of opened potato chips that had been lying on the seat next to me. "You okay?" he asked, popping some of the chips into his mouth. I nodded slowly, putting my foot back onto the floor. I looked out of the window and felt relief pour through me like it never had before. We were on the street my school was on. How had we gotten here so quickly? The old man must have taken some kind of shortcut. The truck pulled to a slow stop in front of the school, and the old man hopped out. He walked over to my side and opened the door for me. I climbed out, looking up into his wrinkled face. "Thanks for the ride, mister," the old man nodded, giving me another smile. "No problem, sweetheart." He got back into the truck and drove away. I watched him go, wondering what the hell had just happened. What had my 10-year-old intuition been telling me? This man was clearly harmless, or else I probably wouldn't be at school right now. I shook my head and walked into the building. To my bewilderment, all of the teachers were crying. I didn't find out why until a little while later. My bus had never made it to the school. A car had hopped unexpectedly into the bus driver's lane, and he had swerved hard, causing the bus to topple over the side of a bridge. There were no survivors. It's 10:11 p.m. right now. I'm inside a classroom on the 3rd floor of my school, because as the title says, we're on lockdown. Right now, everyone is sleeping, even the guy watching over us. The tears, adrenaline, and fear that fueled our day took its toll, and we were all knocked out cold. But before I continue, you have questions, and I may have answers. So let me start before he wakes up. I'm a senior in high school. I live in a fairly safe neighborhood, with the exception of the only danger being drug deals. The whole thing started at about 1:25 p.m., passing period between 6th and 7th period. It was a typical school day, no special events happening or nothing out of the ordinary. My girlfriend and I were one of the last people to leave the classroom, since she had to ask the teacher a question, and being her boyfriend, I waited for her. We went to the 2nd floor to get my AP Environmental Science textbook before heading to the 3rd floor. We had about 3 minutes left in our 7-minute passing periods. We got to the 3rd floor of the school, and in a small hallway with 2 stairways on opposite ends of the hall. As we walked down the hall, I noticed a kid next to me wearing very dark and loose clothing. Weird, I thought to myself. I looked straight and noticed another kid heading down the stairs, wearing almost the same thing. We parted ways to our classes. Mine was located in the very back of the school, the S-Wing. My class is located in the back of the S-Wing. Class began, and so did our daily routine. There's a kid named Matt who sits the back of the classroom and mainly keeps to himself. He never participates and always does projects alone. For whatever odd reason, we was dressed like he was ready for a baseball game, with a jersey and baseball bag with bats. Pretty damn odd if you ask me. The teacher asked us to pull out our homework, and we complied. That's when it all happened. Suddenly, we heard popping noises in rapid succession from down below, and screaming. "What the hell is going on?" one of my classmates asked. He went to leave the classroom to investigate. Just then, Matt stood up and clocked the kid across the head with one of the bats. He flew onto the floor, and Matt pulled out a gun from his jacket. "Get the fuck on the floor," he screamed at us. We all screamed. We dove on the floor, and everyone was crying instantaneously. I looked at Matt from head to toe before I knelt down with my hands behind my head. Everyone was staring at our classmate, who was laying on the floor in a pool of blood. He groaned and tried to get up. Matt walked over to him, fist clenching the bat. He raised the bat in the air and delivered a blow to his face. Blood splattered everywhere, and he laid there motionless. There was more gunshots from below. The school rattled with gunshots and screaming. The first thing I had on my mind was my girlfriend. I needed to make sure she was safe. Phones. Give them to me. Now Matt pointed his gun at us. "What the fuck do you want from us?" Someone shouted at him as people began to put their phones in a bag. Matt looked at the guy and walked over to him. A distraction, I thought to myself. I quickly pulled out my phone and tried to shoot a quick text to my girlfriend. "Are you okay?" I typed at near superhuman speed. Then I slid my phone face down under the desk. Matt hit the guy who questioned him. He walked over to me to get my cell phone. "It's not with me. I forgot it in the gym locker." Matt looked at me for a good 10 seconds before moving on to the next kid. After collecting all the cell phones and threw them in his bag. "All right, motherfuckers. I'm in charge now. You are to listen to whatever the fuck I say, and you will do exactly as I say, or you will end up like your friend over there." He motioned to our dead classmate. "Do you fuckers understand?" We all nodded. Let me try to provide some background on Matt, or at least whatever I know about him. I'm sure there is something wrong with Matt. We'd always hear him talking to himself while his head is down in his arms. He hangs out with the outcasts in our grade and is very distant from almost everyone. I don't want to say this, but I'm sure his family practically disowned him. One of my friends told me that they once saw his dad pick him up from school, and Matt had to practically jump in the car while the car was still going 30 mph. No one recalls ever seeing him with his parents during special events. Reason why I said this is because Matt sat up on the teacher's desk and pulled out his phone. He started reading his messages out loud. Doors and stairs are secured. He was reading texts. I could tell because his thumb was doing the swiping motion. "Cops are outside. They're trying to find a way in." Matt smiled and started typing. These fuckers are in for a surprise once they try to open the door. I was trying to formulate a plan. One of my dreams has become reality. By the way, I'm sorry if it seems like I'm making this school shooting seem like a good thing. It most definitely is not. But for some reason, I think about these situations out of boredom. I come up with contingency plans in case my school gets shot up or my workplace or the grocery store. I think about these things and I have no clue why. It's just the person I am. Where's Officer Gary? Matt read out loud again. He's been taken care of, Matt smiled. I've brought them into the gym, Matt read out loud. Good. Kyle is in the gym, Matt said as he typed his text. Hey, new kid, Matt read. What the hell does this kid want? Matt asked out loud to himself before typing his message. Matt stopped talking out loud after he saw someone looking at him. Matt smashed his face with a bat. This all happened in the span of about 40 minutes. We're starving. We're shaken up and traumatized. We lost communication with the outside world. So many mutual thoughts are running through our heads, such as what's going to happen to us, our parents, loved ones. Are we going to make it out of this? Why is this happening? After sitting around and doing absolutely nothing for hours, everyone fell asleep in the room. Matt dozed off about 10 minutes before I started typing this. Right when I was sure he was asleep, I reached under the desk and pulled out my phone. I still had about 87% battery. I had a text from my girlfriend. We've talked about what to do in this situation. Are you okay? 1:37 p.m. Yeah, I'm in class. Some asshole is here too. 1:38 p.m. Shit, he's taking our phones. 1:38 p.m. We've talked about this. 1:38 p.m. Please try to get back to me when you can. 1:38 p.m. Cook 1:38 p.m. I texted my family and told them what's going on. And now I'm here on our no sleep. It's 11:01 p.m. now. I'm sorry if I seem very disorganized, unlike other entries on our no sleep. There's just so many damn thoughts going through my mind. I'm going to take a quick moment and list what I know and what I don't know. What I know, there's a group of these guys holding up the school. The cops can't get in because the doors have either been A, barricaded, or B, blocked in some other way. All electronics have been confiscated. This is a planned attack. Matt is new to their group. What I don't know, Matt is new, which means he could have no little experience in this type of situation. However, I don't know that. He could have experience or he could have no idea what he's doing. These guys are armed and so is Matt. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know why they decided to shoot up the school. A lot of you may be screaming at your screens that now is the time to go up to Matt and fucking bust his ass. As tempting as it is, now isn't the time. I need answers. I need to know why this is happening and what they want from us. This isn't Columbine or Virginia Tech. This isn't a murder, suicide, or your typical school shooting. They aren't shooting the school up because of rage. They want something and I need to find out what that is. I need rest. I have what it takes to get to the bottom of this, but I can't do this alone. So if anyone from my school happens to see this, please contact me. We need to take these guys down. It's time to put my skills to the test. I'll try to provide an update tomorrow if I can. If not, spread this news to everyone. We don't know how long this holdup will last, but this information could save lives. I gotta throw my phone back under the desk now. See ya. Edit, it's 12:16 p.m. I'll alive. I'll try to update soon. Edit, it's 3:37 p.m. I posted an update about an hour ago, but it was taken down by the mods. I'll repost it tonight, and based off what we're about to do, it's gonna be a long one. Edit, 4:21 p.m. Fuck, this is not going as planned. Fuck. Edit, 4:35 p.m. We barricaded ourselves in a classroom. Expect a huge update tonight. It's Friday, March 3rd, 2017. 6:07 p.m. A lot has happened since yesterday. My last post was removed once again, but because this chronicle doesn't fit in the horror genre, I deeply apologize to anyone who wanted to know what happened but couldn't. Shit's about to go down pretty soon, and when this is all settled, I'll let you know what happened yesterday and what's about to happen right now. This ends tonight. March 4th, 2017, 10:17 a.m. We did it. We're alive and out of the school. Here's a scope of what happened. I used Matt's phone to lure one of his friends into a bathroom where we ambushed him and beat his head in his head. There were still 3 guys left and were to be found in the library gym, and the other one was wandering the school. At approximately 1 a.m. last night, I rallied up my buddies and we decided to turn the tables and bring the fight to them. We got the police on the phone and ran to a side entrance, and they helped us deactivate the devices. Thankfully, Brad is some sort of electronic genius, so we got this done no problem. The police got in the building and they tried to force us to get out, but we did not comply and wanted to help evacuate the building. We ran to the classrooms and told them it is safe to get out and where to exit. Dakota ran back to our classroom and took the 3rd floor with Jake. Ryan and Brad took the 2nd floor, and Alex and I took the 1st. I passed the library and heard gunshots. I ran for cover and pulled out the gun I had, and more gunshots went off. Then I realized the gunshots were coming from inside the library. I peeked inside through the door, and one of those fuckers started executing the students inside. I can't run to get a cop because by the time I get back with one, they could all be dead. If I screamed for help, he'll hear I'm outside and then kill all at once. I had to take matters into my own hands. I approached the door and got myself together. I had to shoot and I had to kill. I opened the door and clicked the safety. The first thing I saw was the fucker standing on the table and about 7 bodies surrounding him. He spun around and I lifted my gun. 2 gunshots filled the room. His bullet grazed my arm and my bullet met its mark on the lead side of his chest. He yelled and fell off the table. Everyone in the room screamed and I yelled at them to get the hell out of there. I ran to the guy and finished him off with a bullet to his head. I got out of the library and heard yelling and gunshots from the floor above me. My buddies and I regrouped and we went for the gym. We heard yelling down the hall. Police had swarmed the outside of the gym. Don't go in. He's threatening that he has a bomb. Have you tried going upstairs through the balconies? Alex asked. I said we can't go in because he's threatening that he has a bomb. I thought about what to do. The police couldn't enter through the upstairs part of the gym through the wrestling and weight balconies. Then I had an idea. I pulled out Matt's cell phone and called the guy who was in there. His name was Kyle. Let us in and let them out. This fight is over. Those innocent people are not a part of this. We'll bring no weapons and no cops. I just want to talk. We'll figure something out. You'll walk out of this alive as long as we can all come to an understanding. He was quiet for a moment. Fine. About 50 people ran out of the gym and were escorted out by a few police officers. We put our guns down and the police gave us the okay. We walked in. There had to be at least 50 kids in there with this guy. He had his gun pointed down at them, and in his other hand was a button that was wired to the inside of his jacket. He lowered his hand with the button. What is it that you want? We tried to sound as peaceful as possible. We're listening. All we wanted was to be known. We slowly walked towards him as we listened. We see all these popular guys, athletes, hoes, anything. They're all known for doing something, he continued. Then one day I realized with these school shootings, no one ever forgets those. Virginia Tech, Columbine, Sandy Hook. No one forgets those. No one ever will. So, I thought if we can orchestrate the greatest school shooting ever known to man, we'll definitely be remembered for years. So you did all of this just so people know you exist. Jake said with disgust, you gotta do what you gotta do. Well, this isn't just your typical school shooting. We've managed to keep you guys in here for 3 nights straight. I'm sure we've beaten ice. We paused for a moment. The police aren't planning on taking you alive, so I suggest you come with us and we'll reason with them so you get out of here alive. We walked towards him. He raised his gun at us. Back off. We complied. You and your friends have killed maybe over 100 people. The police have orders to shoot on sight, and we want you leaving this building in handcuffs, not in a bag, I reasoned. No one deserves death, no matter what they did to think they deserve it. I don't plan on getting out of here alive. He turned his gun to me and fired. I was pushed onto the floor. I turned and saw Alex laying on the ground with my friends on the floor kneeling beside him. I looked up at Kyle. Then another gunshot rang. Kyle fell face first onto the floor. We looked to the wrestling balcony where the sound had came from. It was Matt. Please forgive us. He then turned the gun onto himself and another shot rang out. Jake got up and ran to the door and alerted the police. I got up and went to Alex. This guy just saved my life. They got Alex out of there and we got out of the school. I told the officers to get up to the wrestling balcony and get Matt's body. Somehow Matt must went around the police and entered the wrestling balcony through the other side. The police did one final sweep of the building to make sure everyone was out once we got out. Alex was put in an ambulance and immediately driven off to the hospital. As for me and my friends, we were also put in an ambulance and brought to the hospital. I had completely forgotten I was wounded in my arm. Right now, I'm in the hospital typing this on my phone. Thanks to your efforts, Redditors, we've managed to save as many lives as we can, even though it doesn't mean everyone. But we did what we could. The school is going to be shut down for quite a long time. I don't know if we'll have to go to a different school for now, but we'll see. Thank you everyone for helping us. It's been a long 3 nights. Thank you. I have been doing this for a lot of years. Sure, I have changed schools a couple of times, had to even move states to help with my wife's elderly parents, but I have always viewed the kids on my bus as an extension of my family. At the beginning of the school year, I prepare a welcome bag for them, something simple like a box of crayons and pencils for the kindergartners, and maybe a few notebooks for the upper grades. They always enjoy every minute on my bus because I take the time to really truly get to know each one of them. I keep a record of their names, try to associate it with something like favorite food or song, and then memorize those details. I know this probably seems like a lot of work when I am only getting paid a measly $13 an hour, but it matters to me. Sometimes these kids are all alone and come from bad homes. It's my job as part of the educational system to provide them with a safe place, even if it is for only an hour coming and going. I think the kids that have the roughest time adjusting to school are the ones that come in late. With 0 friends and no clue as to what's happening, I try to help as much as I can. That was my intention when my boss gave me a new rider on March 30th this year. It was only a few blocks away from one of my other spots, and according to the paperwork, the kid was 6 years old and named Jack Calford. The file also said he had 2 siblings, but neither of them were old enough to ride, and that his mom's name was Samantha and she had recently separated. That told me already that this kid was probably going to have a tough time. I lost my dad at that age, and it's never been easy to connect to anyone. Had it not been for a few strong male figures in my life, I probably wouldn't have had anyone to consider a father. So that next Monday morning, I went the extra mile to get ready to meet Jack. I got 2 sets of crayons, pencils, some staplers and glue, and even a backpack with wheels. I drove up to pick him up around 7:15, the time we had arranged with the mom, and got my first look at his house. A few of the other kids were already making a few remarks because of the dirty, unclean nature of their yard, but I guessed that the mom probably didn't have many choices when it came to finding housing. I've always been the kind to give people the benefit of the doubt. I put my air brake on and the flashing lights told them I was outside. As I opened the door, I smelled this strange, distant odor. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but it was very distinct. I think it reminded me of something I had found under my house once, like old mold. But Jack never came out, and I knew I couldn't wait, so I drove away. The other kids jeered, and I had to focus on settling them down the rest of the ride to the elementary as I thought about Jack and his current home conditions. I wanted to know for sure he was okay. Jack didn't show up to get on the afternoon route either, and I asked my boss if I had gotten the wrong address. You know how it is. Parents never remember the first time they try to get their kids out to the bus on time. I couldn't argue with that, so the next day I decided to wait for a few extra minutes to make sure Jack could make it on the bus. Again, when I opened the door, I smelled the repugnant odor, and I felt my mouth starting to go dry. A few of the kids that I had already picked were starting to complain, so I honked the horn. Jack's mom waved at the window and I smiled, glad to finally make some progress. A few seconds later, the door to their house opened, and I saw Jack step out. I've seen a lot of kids come from bad situations, but the way this boy was dressed just hurt my heart. It was clear that the mom couldn't afford to get him clean pants, or even a shirt that was the right size. And as he got closer to the bus door, I saw that his face was dirty, and that odor I had detected earlier seemed to follow him as he got on the bus. It took me a moment to refrain from being repulsed by the smell. I knew it wasn't this child's fault, so I smiled at him and offered him the backpack filled with goodies that I had been planning to give him the day before. "Welcome aboard, Jack. You can call me Mr. Charlie," I said with a broad smile. The boy made no response and just took the bag and shuffled his feet toward the back of the school bus. As he passed the others' kid by, several of them started to make sarcastic and derogatory comments about his smell. "Did you sleep in dog crap? Don't you own a bath? Disgusting," one little girl shouted. Jack didn't bother to lash out. He just quietly got to the back of the bus and found an empty seat. Unsurprisingly, nobody wanted to sit by him. Near the end of my route before we get to school, my bus gets typically packed, and I nearly got into an argument with a high schooler about Jack. "Mr. Charles, that kid smells like death," the girl said, holding her nose and trying not to gag. "You either sit there or you walk to school," I shouted at her. I hated to raise my voice, but the truth was during the entire bus ride, The other kids had complained. I knew that Jack was going to have problems as soon as he got into class. After all the kids got off, I gave Jack a half-hearted smile and hoped that his teachers could find a way to get off that awful smell. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't imagine that his mother wanted him to go to school smelling like this. It just bothered me to no end, especially what that one girl had said. Jack smelled like he was covered in the odor of death. That wasn't an exaggeration. It literally could only be described as the smell you could get if you had killed an animal and left it out in the hot sun for a week. And it made me so sad to imagine that poor kid having to be bullied and taunted all day because of that smell. Not to my surprise, that afternoon I found out Jack's teacher had made him go home early because too many people had complained about his smell. I don't think we can let this kid ride on the bus until his mom takes him to a doctor and figures out why he stinks so much, my boss said. That just rubbed me the wrong way even more. It's not their fault. Larry, if you saw his house, you would understand. These people are poor. They need some help, I told him. Maybe so, but that isn't our problem. We have about 50 other kids to take care of on that route, and we can't be busy worrying about just one. The school will handle it from here, my boss told me. I told him I was fine with that, but it just sat wrong with me. I wanted to do something more than just stop and check to see if he could ride on the bus yet. Maybe it wasn't my place to do any of this, but my heart just went out to the kid. I went to Walmart that afternoon and bought him everything I felt he needed, and waited until I got off work to stop by his house. I've always been told that after hours we aren't supposed to get sociable with our kids or their family, but I kind of felt like this was an exception. I got there about 4:15 and parked my car right in front of their driveway, so there wasn't any surprise about someone being there. I grabbed the backpack and walked up the door, doing my best to ignore the pungent smell that was all across the entire front yard. Knocking on the door, I held the backpack behind my leg and got a better look at the toys that Jack was playing with scattered throughout the yard. There were dolls with their heads bitten off as though the boy had been chewing on them. Mismatched Lego sets that didn't seem to have any particular pattern, and action figures that reminded me of those messed up toys from the first Pixar film. All of it told me a troubling story about how Jack's home life was going. Was that the reason for his smell? His mother appeared at the door a moment later, her eyes filled with questions and surprise at seeing me. Who are you?" she asked. "Mom, I don't mean to bother, but I work with the school. I'm your son's school bus driver," I told her as I briefly glanced inside their home. The mess that was covering the yard easily spread into the first living area. Was it that bad that she couldn't clean up after themselves? I didn't want to judge, so instead I showed her the gifts I brought for Jack. "I know that you want to give your child a good education, and all of us at the school are worried about him. This is my way of pitching in to help," I said, offering the backpack to her. Her eyes welled up with tears, and I wasn't sure if she was going to have a breakdown or shout in my face. Sometimes it was impossible to be sure how a parent would react. "I can't accept this," she finally said. That was not the response I was expecting. Before I knew how to even reply, she closed her door hastily, and I was standing on the trash-covered front step of her house alone. I sighed, figuring that she must have her reasons, and left the bag with the clothes at the side of her door. I didn't mean to embarrass her, but now my main concern was for the welfare of her child. The next day Jack wrote it seemed like his mom had overcome her apprehensive attitude because he was wearing the clothes I had bought. They fit him almost perfect. Walking out to the bus, I saw he seemed happier than before, and I thought maybe this was the start of a new chapter for him. That changed, though, when I opened the door to let him on the bus. That same foul smell covered him like a stench despite the new clothes, and this time I found myself doing my best to avoid throwing up. "It was that bad? Didn't you take a shower?" a girl on the front seat asked. Jack glared at her, seemingly embarrassed that his new clothes weren't hiding his smell, and then tossed his backpack down and ran back inside his house. Some of the kids giggled, and it took all my self-control not to yell for them to quiet. But I knew one thing for certain. Jack wouldn't be going back to school until that smell was off his body permanently. I don't know why I felt obligated to reach out and help. Maybe because I was already so invested in him. Maybe because he reminded me of myself. But that afternoon I stopped by their house again with a new goal. It occurred to me that maybe his mother couldn't afford clean water. "I wanted to extend my house to you and your son," I told her. I knew that being older she wouldn't consider my intentions to be anything except friendly, but she still declined. "I know you have been so kind to Jack, but you just need to stop. I don't want anything bad to happen to you," she said. That thought made little sense to me, as I couldn't fathom how helping Jack out would harm me, and the way she acted bothered me. Was she scared of her son? It couldn't be that. I felt like she was hiding something. She had turned away help from me and from the school time and time again, and I couldn't grasp why that was. So I did something I have never had to do in my career and contacted SPI. I think I was a little angry, maybe because I was just so worried about Jack, but I couldn't think of any other way to help him. I told the representative that I talked to the entire situation, and they thanked me for my diligence. "You have done an amazing job, Mr. Charles. We will handle it from here," a woman told me. That whole weekend my stomach churned and I worried about what would happen to Jack. They said they would get to his house as quickly as possible, but I wasn't so sure it was going to be that easy. Monday rolled around again, and I tried to resume normal life and put the worry out of my head, but it got stronger as I arrived at Jack's house. Something was wrong. This time, as he boarded the bus, he looked angry and hostile, as though I had stabbed him in the heart. The smell was also stronger than it had ever been. I literally had to hold my breath when he was near me, and I saw his mother standing in the doorstep glaring at me. It looked like her arm was covered in scratches. Had Jack attacked her because he was apprehensive about returning to school? It bothered me to no end. What if Seeps had come but hadn't found anything disturbing at all? It all felt like something had happened in that house, and it wasn't good. I have made it a habit of mine to trust my gut, and this told me I needed to get inside that house and find out what was happening. I was sure I would likely lose my job over this, but I needed to know the truth about why Jack's smell hadn't gone away. Why Kepps had not taken this kid away to a better home. I needed answers. "Jack, is there something happening in your house that you are scared of?" I asked the boy. I made sure he was the last one off that day. I knew the mother would open the door when she saw the school bus, and it was going to be my only chance. He only nodded, not even bothering to explain. Not that he needed to. That told me that this mom was not the doting, concerned parent I had given the benefit of the doubt to. So I helped him off the bus and walked up to the door. The mom saw the look on my face and said, "You shouldn't be here. I need to see Jack's room. He took something from me and I want it back." This was the lie I had prepared by slipping my Rolex into his pack from the previous day. The mom hesitated at first, and then looked down at her son, as though checking with him that it was all right. Jack gave a slight nod, and then led me inside. The smell of death was even stronger here. I swear I saw a dead cat in the corner of the room, and it seemed like feces covered the floor. Jack guided me by the hand to a set of stairs that led to the basement. "What's down there?" I whispered. My blood was boiling. I was so angry with the mom for letting them live this way, but Jack didn't seem bothered. He just tugged my hand and encouraged me to come down with him and said my room. The basement was damp and moldy, a single dim bulb burning and hanging from a clothes string. As we got to the bottom of the stairs, I saw something on the floor that looked like it was made of wood and had a cover on top of it. Getting closer, I realized it was a tiny coffin, just large enough for Jack. "Is there where you sleep?" I asked. He nodded and I heard a muffled scream. There against the wall was a man about half my age, probably old enough to be Jack's father. He was chained up and had half of his stomach pulled out, blood dripping on the concrete floor. His noises distracted Jack, and he went over to his father, and I watched in shock as he began to feed on the mangled organs dangling from his side. I stumbled back toward the steps, my eyes not daring to look away as Jack kept eating and snarling. This was no way for a child to live. But then the glint in his eyes and the way his teeth gnashed against his dad's flesh told me the truth. This was not a child at all. It was a ghoul. I ran up the stairs. The mother was there, trembling and crying as she watched helplessly. "Why don't you tell the police?" I asked frantically. She covered her mouth as she watched her son keep feeding. "Have you ever had children, Mr. Charles?" I ran from the house and toward the bus. I got back to work as quickly as possible, and when I shut the bus down, I held my breath for a few moments and counted to 10. Then I realized I had left Jack's backpack on the bus again. The stench of death was still coming from it. I dared to unzip it and looked down to see decaying flesh stuffed in his pack like lunch meat. I pushed it away and gagged. I needed to tell someone. As I got off the bus, I found myself staring at Jack. Somehow he had followed me from his house a few blocks away. "You can't tell anyone," he warned. Then he gestured toward the pack and encouraged me to unzip it again. I looked in the goop of blood and bones and saw something shiny in there. I reached in and pulled it out. It was the badge of one of the Skeps employees. I looked up at Jack and he smiled and walked away. Ever since that day, I have had Jack sit on the front row of the bus and given him the best treatment. I've recommended his teachers do the same.